Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3974. Today's date is March 31, 2036, 20, 2026. Uh, today's it's almost like 10:48 p.m. All right, let's just jump into the question. Let's go. All right, the question is how many schools still lack reliable classroom, electricity, toilet, drinking water, internet connectivity, libraries, labs, or disability access, and what is a time bond strategy to close the gap in Indian education system? Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? This question is associated with the Indian education system. Why am I asking this question to myself? Why am I asking to myself? Yes, like basically it's this thing, na, ki tomorrow, or so tomorrow means like that, not tomorrow. In the future, I will become education minister of India, and basically it's this thing that ki when I before that particular thing, I wanted to aware of that situation and things and that. So that's why I'm actually asking this question to myself. Now, regarding about the question, let me explain this question in simple language. The question says that ki, what is the missing in Indian school right now, and what are the government deadline to fix that thing or capture that or complete that deadline. Now, what exactly deadline is about? Deadline is about a kind of like a simply essential thing for school should supposed to be have, like a toilet, electricity, okay, then kind of like a something computer, internet, okay, and these are kind of like a very essential thing that school should supposed to be have, okay, and they have kind of like a multiples of deadline too, okay. Now I am trying to kind of like understand, okay, okay. So let me tell you one thing. This is kind of like one of the biggest problem that I don't know is it biggest problem or not, but I don't know. I'm trying to kind of like figure it out the solution and things and that. Okay. Let me tell you the problem, and then I will kind of like tell you the solution. Okay. So basically this thing, I wanted to build the sorry. Okay. I already mentioned regarding about Gurukul program. Okay, yeah. What is exactly Gurukul program and how things and that and that and that and that. Okay, yeah. Still again I mentioned. Okay, yeah. So basically it's this thing that he like I have to kind of like explain everything regarding about. Okay, so let me explain everything. What exactly is this thing? What is actually problem? Then I will talk about thing. First, let's talk about the problem. Problem start with the Gurukul. Okay, yeah. So let me tell you one thing. My plan is to kind of like reform the entire Indian education system. Okay, yeah. Now this is a kind of like a very much kind of like a things that I'm not really sure should I suppose we change entirely or not. Now entirely or not means what? Like okay, let me tell you one thing. Okay, if I'm say that key I can draw a painting. Okay, yeah. So you take a canvas and you are kind of like a draw the painting. Now somehow in mid drawing you realize that the drawing is not really good. Okay, yeah. So what should you supposed to do? Should you fix that drawing or should you start over? Okay, yeah. Because if you try to fix that drawing, it takes more time. It takes more time to kind of like a creates, like if I kind of like somebody create from blank canvas and create the new drawing, I will gonna done it quickly if I fix that thing. Okay, like try to understand. Like a fixing takes too much amount of time. But if I have a new canvas and try to create the entire drawing, then it would be kind of like a far more easier, right? Yeah. Now, in the kind of like a drawing point of perspective, yeah, it is okay. But like when you are trying to change the entire education system, that means you are kind of like a wipe out the whatever the Indian education system that they build. You are wiping out everything, and then you are kind of like a try to build from beginning. Okay, yeah. So is it worth it or not? Okay, so that's a kind of like a big challenge. Okay, so basically this thing, let me kind of like simply tell you the scenario. Okay, yeah. So if I build Gurukul, okay, yeah. Now what is actually Gurukul? Like I already mentioned in the previous artifact episode, I will not gonna mention again things like that and that. Okay, yeah. So if I build the Gurukul, like what is actually the criteria? Okay, so what is actually the biggest thing? Okay, right now I'm kind of like some religious thing that ki like I try to explain to you, but there are so many stuff are kind of like simply associate and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Let's start from the beginning. Okay, yeah. From every possible question that I have to give the answer. First of all, okay, yeah. What is exactly Gurukul? Gurukul is a Gurukul program. Okay, now what is exactly a Gurukul program? A Gurukul program means like that ki basically is this thing that ki students should supposed to be learn by themselves by using app and things and that and that. Right now I don't really have any kind of like a mind to record artifact. Like I wanted to talk about things about the Gurukul and things and that and that. Like basically I wanted to explain everything, but right now I cannot able to explain everything because my mind is not in the mood right now. I'm kind of like a thinking about something and kind of like a talking about something and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Okay, whatever. Let me kind of like simply talk the stuff that I wanted to talk. Okay, yeah. Problem. Let's talk about the problem. Okay, yeah. I will not gonna kind of like mention what is actually Gurukul and things and that and that. You just have to look my previous artifact episode. You will kind of like realize what is actually existing that and that. Okay. So problem. Okay. So let me kind of like tell you my Gurukul. If I kind of like build the Gurukul from the scratch, I can build the Gurukul. But the problem is that ki what will gonna happen the school who already built it. Okay, yeah. Let me tell you. So basically if I build the Gurukul, it will gonna take 20 years. So probably 2046. Okay, yeah. So if the Gurukul program is kind of like executed in 2046, that means till 2046 we might have really good school with have kind of like a really good kind of like a privileges like a toilet things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So basically the question is that ki can I make school into the Gurukul or do I build Gurukul from ground up? Okay, so there are a couple of criterias are really required for meet Gurukul. Okay, what are those criteria? First of all is that let me tell you what exactly Gurukul are used for. Now basically this thing, a Gurukul are used for a student who would kind of like simply go into the Gurukul. They will kind of like stay there, live there, eat together, stay together, learn together, things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now most of the schools have only facility that they have is school. Probably they would have a toilet. But when I try to build the Gurukul, I need a boys hostel, girls hostel, kind of like a school, auditorium, playground, library. Okay, yeah. Like basically everything. Okay. So a kind of like assembly of one school, can I convert one school into the Gurukul? It does not. From every possible way I try to think about that, but it does not. Why? The problem is that key, like basically let's take a kind of like a things. Okay, yeah. Just one school has only one building, just a school, that's it. But a Gurukul really required a lot of things, like a boys hostel, girls hostel. This is a lot of thing. Okay, yeah. Obviously, if I try to build in that area, it would be not gonna possible. Why? Because of that key, very less space. Gurukul takes a lot of amount of space and things and that and that. So probably is saying that key I cannot able to be use the kind of like a somebody school or whatever the school that they build. I cannot able to use those schools for Gurukul. Okay, yeah. But maybe I am maybe wrong. Why? Because of that, he probably is this thing. I'm thinking about a kind of like a very far away. Okay, yeah. Let's take a step by step. Okay, yeah. Now building a Gurukul is a kind of like a very big thing. Okay, yeah. Obviously, it will gonna take a lot of amount of time, pressure, and lot of money, right? So let's just imagine that key in 2046 Gurukul are actually established. Okay, Gurukul bill are actually established. Gurukul program is established and things and that and that. So at early stages, okay, probably is this thing that the student will not gonna move to the Gurukul. Okay, they will be continuously doing this thing. They will continue go to the kind of like a school and things and that and that. Only one thing that they would gonna change is that key they will gonna get the tablet with their application. Okay, and in that application they will kind of like do the learning over there. Okay, online learning as much as it possible. Okay, now about the Gurukul, I will gonna build slowly. Okay, or maybe is this thing that key I have to build a massive Gurukul. Now massive Gurukul means what? Like probably a capacity of 10,000 students. Okay, so if I build a kind of like a one Gurukul which is a capacity of 10,000 students, okay, yeah, so this might gonna work. How? Because of that, maybe one Gurukul probably like let's just say like in one city I will gonna make one Gurukul. So how many cities that we have? Probably like 300 city, 300 400 cities probably. Wait, let me kind of like how many cities we have in India. Okay, let me verify how many cities that we have. Like if I have a kind of like a let's just say 300 400 cities, so I have to figure it out regarding about the like a possible kind of like a something like I don't know. Okay, maybe like basically is this what is that will happen that key Gurukul program will establish since like when the Gurukul actually established the Gurukul program, like first how many cities that we have. Okay, the exact number of cities in India depends upon how you define them, but according to the last official census of there are almost 7,935 town and city. Oh my god. Sorry. Statutory town is 4,000, census town 3,879. Oh my god. We have a lot of cities. Smart cities. Going to specifically design 100 cities which are developed in the modernized to smart city. 33 major metropolitan cities. Popular over 1 million, such as the Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and things and that and that. Okay, so Indian government specifically selected 100 cities to develop the smart cities mission. Okay, so basically is this thing what I'm thinking, what I kind of like thinking that key like instead of kind of like a building Gurukul in every city at the beginning I have to make a kind of like a something build a Gurukul in a kind of like a something bigger city or maybe top 100 cities. Okay, from the ground up. Okay, and each gurukul have a capacity of 10,000 student. Okay, so basically let's just imagine that ki 10,000 student per gurukul, that means 10,000 into 100. So probably almost like a 10,000 into 100, that means like wait, I'm not really good at mathematics. Okay, so let me open the calculator. So 10,000 into 100, so that means ek dashik shatak, hazar, 10,000, laksha, 10 laksha, like basically 1 cr. Yeah, is it 1 cr na? Like a score have a like ekak, dashak, shatak, hazar, 10,000, laksha, 10 laksha, no, 10 lakh. Okay, yeah. So I will gonna cover almost like a 10 lakh students. 10 lakh student, that means 10 lakh student, that means like a 1 million student, right? Yeah, 1 million student. No, that is not. 1 million student is not really that much. I need a bigger. Okay, I need to build like a massive Gurukul, or maybe expand the Gurukul in multiple cities. 100 cities are not efficient. We have to make more and more Gurukul to kind of like a fill up the entire thing. Yeah. Or maybe I don't know, at the moment now I'm kind of like a very much confused regarding about this thing. Like basically I am thinking about that ki should I use the already built up school, should I use those things as a Gurukul, but it's not possible na. They have only one building as a school, that's it. Like in the Gurukul we really required a kind of like a lot of stuff. And if I kind of like started putting students into the kind of like the school who kind of like it's cannot. There are so many kind of like some challenges would gonna come, living challenges, things and that lot of stuff. So obviously is this thing that na ki probably, yeah, like, but ask this question now, why do we have a Gurukul? Like what exactly is this thing? Like basically is this thing na ki what if like student will kind of like somebody get the education from the app. Okay, yeah. So what is actually Gurukul for? Well, Gurukul actually for like there is a lot of development is actually happening Gurukul. Okay, yeah. Like basically first of all is that na ki okay, what is actually my goal? What exactly is this thing? My goal is that ki students supposed to be live together, stay together, learn together, kind of like a things and that. But why? Because of that na ki let me kind of like somebody is this thing. Okay, maybe I'm completely wrong in this particular context, but what I'm thinking is that na ki usually is this thing, when the student are kind of like simply living with their parents, I don't want students to supposed to live with their parents. Why? Because of that ki they will not gonna kind of like develop their mindset. Okay, yeah. Because and as also is this thing na ki when they started living with their parents, then probably is this thing their development would be kind of like a bit more differently. Like example is this thing that ki let's just say a student who are kind of like living with their parents, and those parents are actually living with the villagers. Okay, yeah. So their exposure would be kind of like a very much different. Okay, yeah. The kind of like a person who's kind of like a parents who live in the city, their exposure would be completely different. Example is this thing, the person who's kind of like living in the city might kind of like started reading a book because their parents are actually taught them to read the book. Okay, yeah. But the villagers, they might not read the book, or maybe they think that it's a kind of like a stupid thing, like we have kind of like a text subjects, why should we supposed to be read any kind of like some book material things and that. Okay, another thing is that creates a biasness. Another thing is that na ki nourishment. Okay, yeah. A kind of like a rich person kind of like a provide really rich parents kind of like a provide really good food, but a poor family does not provide that much amount of good food. Nourishment is a kind of like a bit more important to develop mindset and things and that. Another thing is that ki basically another thing is that ki when the people are kind of like when the students are kind of like live together, they will gonna know more like I don't know, like basically what exactly is this thing na ki if the student will started living with their parents, they will become replica of their parents. Now what's the replica of their parents? Okay, so let me tell you one thing na ki a doctor's like basically a son of doctor became doctor, like this is kind of like a legacy is always been continue. Okay, yeah. And same thing happened with the kind of like a somebody the farmer. Okay, the farmer son is also became the farmer in the future. It is kind of like a somebody is this thing na ki because of these things are kind of like a somebody, yeah, because the surrounding is kind of like influence the mindset and things and that. Now if I wanted to develop them, okay, yeah, app will kind of like simply do the things, okay, yeah. But one of the biggest development is that ki personality development. That personality, I wanted to change the surrounding. I wanted to make my student ready for the world. Like basically I wanted to present them in front of the world, in front of the global stage and things and that. Now this will not gonna happen. Like basically this thing na, the entire growth of the country is depend upon the students. Okay, they will become the citizen of the India in the future. So it is really essential them to nourish them equally. And when I kind of like nourish them equally regarding about everything like physically, mentally and things and that, they will kind of like become better. Okay, yeah, because of the like basically a right influence will kind of like create a better person in the next future. Okay, so this is what I want. Okay, another thing, I wanted to take the load from the parents. And why are you kind of like taking the load from the parents? Because I want parents should supposed to be make more kids, because that is also really essential too. Because most of the parents are not making more kids because of the they think that their education and things are not they can afford. So yeah, I don't know, dude. It's like that na ki right now might be your kind of like a thinking that ki it sounds so like a really wrong, and but that is true, yeah. Like basically is this thing na ki if the student like what do you want to say? Like you want to say that ki a farmer son would not become a farmer? No, it's not that. Okay, yeah. Like choosing a profession is depends on his choice, whatever it is. I am not kind of like a try to choose, but kind of like somebody surrounding it changed that, na. A surrounding is actually influence our thought process and things and that. Like, okay, let me kind of like simply give you context. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, if I have a kind of like a somebody 10,000 student at one place, so I have to be guide them very easily, perfectly regarding about everything mentally, physically and things and that. Okay, but if those, and as also is this thing, if those students are kind of like went to the home, I cannot able to be control them, their time, like nothing really at all. Like physical exercise, sports are also really essential. Okay. So Gurukul is a kind of like a something very essential. Application is kind of like a providing the education is a just for kind of like a some internal point of perspective, but the external, the nourishment and the environment and surrounding is kind of like a depend on external factor. So Gurukul is a kind of like a something essential. Now the problem is also same thing, is that should I supposed to be kind of like a build up, like a build from the ground up or what? Because there are almost like a 1.4 million schools in India. Okay, so 1.4 million school, and if I kind of like started establish the Gurukul, then probably what's gonna happen that whatever the money that government spend on 1.4 million schools, they are gone, they just waste. Like basically is this thing that then I kind of like build the Gurukul, then government will spend again kind of like a billions of dollars to kind of like build the Gurukul and things and that's a big problem. Why does government will kind of like spending again more money to build the Gurukul and things and that? So that's a bigger thing, and obviously is this thing they will not gonna convince to build the Gurukul again. And obviously Gurukul takes so much amount of cost, like literally just like that na ki how much money does it really require Gurukul? Well, probably 10% of GDP every year for 10 years. That means kind of like a $10 billion per year. Okay, yeah. So if I'm kind of looking at the estimate money that really required to build that many Gurukul, then probably $100 billion, not rupees, $100 billion to spend to build the Gurukul. That's the manufacturing cost. Operation cost would be another hassle. Okay, yeah. So that's the thing. And another thing is that now the output of that $100 billion will gonna become after 20 year. After 20 year means like that 2076. Okay, yeah. Now 2066 and the 2066, and after the 2066, then probably is this thing, then Gurukul will kind of like somebody pumping almost like $1 trillion per year in the Indian economy. Then it will kind of like add some sort of value into the economy and things like that and that. Okay, then it will gonna multiply. So basically is this thing that key till 2066 Gurukul, it just became liability. Okay, yeah. And very very kind of like a very fucking liability. Because of that key, it will not gonna kind of the government will not gonna earn any kind of like a money, nothing really at all, just spending almost like a hundreds of billion dollar into the Gurukul. It's just nothing really at all till 2066. And after the 2066, then it will kind of like a pump trillions of dollar into the Indian economy per year. Okay, then things might be kind of like a very crazy will can happen. Okay, if I kind of like started establishing the Gurukul na, the way that I imagined and things like that and that, then probably it would be kind of like a really amazing, dude. Like just like boy oh boy. Okay, basically this thing, I'm gonna kind of like creating hundreds of Elon Musk from the soil of Indian. Every single person is kind of like a became entrepreneur. I cannot even able to say entrepreneur, how they will become entrepreneur. They will become a kind of like a business person and things and that. Like I'm kind of like a believe in my techniques and things like that. Like basically okay, so that's a big problem. Yeah. This is, I have to be think about that. Right now I don't really have any kind of like assembly opinion regarding about that. Because of that, till 2046 Indian government will spending so much amount of money on school, and then whatever that kind of like infrastructure will not gonna use for anything at all. Will it or will not? I'm not really sure. Okay, yeah. But dude, like basically how many, okay, Gurukul are essential, dude. Like we have not only just like if I kind of like started building a Gurukul, how many Gurukul do I have to build? Almost like thousands of Gurukul. Each Gurukul has a kind of like assembly like a 10,000 capacity. So if I kind of like do the mathematics, let me do the mathematics. So let's just say each Gurukul have a 10,000 capacity. Okay, yeah. Into 1,000. So probably maybe almost like a दशक शतक हजार 10,000 laksh laksh koti. That means 10 million. 10 million. 10 million, yeah. 10 million, na? Yeah, 10 million. 10 million is still less. The children are actually exist. Like basically the Gurukul program will actually cater from 5th standard to graduation. Or yeah, if I'm thinking about a long-term point of perspective, then probably these are the very much like the total population of the India is almost like a 1.3 billion. Okay, yeah. So in the 1.3, probably almost like let's just say take a round figure, 800 million students. Okay, yeah, 800 million students. And how much this code is that? 10 million. Oh, that's a very less. So how many Gurukul that we should supposed to be built? We have to build like 10,000 with 10,000 capacity of Gurukul of 10,000 Gurukul. So when it came ekak dashak shatak, hazar dash hazar laksha, dash laksha koti, dash koti, that means yeah, probably is this thing that ki 100 million. Yeah, these are the kind of like 100 million. And the 100 million, na? Yeah, 100 million. Yes. So probably it still required a lot. 100 million not. Like probably I need at least like a 500. Like my Gurukul should supposed to be cater at least like a 500 million students. So 500, that means, oh my god. Either we have increased the capacity of the Gurukul or increase the number of the Gurukul. Increase the capacity of the Gurukul, like let's just say 20,000 students. Like each Gurukul has a 20,000 students. That means, but 20,000 student is like a 20,000 student is operational, because like a managing 20,000 student in one place, like it's a very big thing, dude. Yeah, big thing. Let's just imagine. Okay, let's just take a kind of like a guess. Okay, yeah. So 20,000. Okay, so if I build the capacity of 20,000 into, let's just say, how many Gurukul should we supposed to build? Let's take a kind of like a 20,000 Gurukul. Okay, yeah. So 20,000 Gurukul. So it will gonna cater almost like a 400 million. Yeah, it would be somewhat something. So if I would kind of like a, let's just say that key 30,000, so that means 600 million. So probably is this thing that ki if I make a Gurukul of 20,000 capacity of students, 20,000, that's a very big number, dude. 20,000 capacity of student, that means, oh my god, how many resources do we really require? A lot. But the advantage is that na ki having more capacity of the Gurukul will kind of like a became creates its own revenue system. Okay, yeah, means like that na ki like the smaller Gurukul will kind of like a became burden in Indian education system, but bigger Gurukul will kind of like a somebody find its own revenue system because of that ki 20,000 kind of like a somebody student that they have, and those 20,000 students will kind of like a create the revenue. How? By cafes and things. So like basically the Gurukul is kind of like a somebody like yeah, like they will lot of stuff. I already mentioned regarding about the revenue sources. Bigger Gurukul have a kind of like a multiple revenue sources, but 20,000 students are too much. Like if I'm kind of like a thinking about managing 20,000s, it would gonna took me almost like a maybe thousands of kind of like a probably like I need almost like a thousands of Gurukul staff, 1,000 people of Gurukul staff, then 500 teachers, and that's too much. Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of like a some this thing now. As I mentioned, like a thousands, like a 20,000 capacity of the Gurukul are kind of like a far much kind of like a some this thing that they will find create its own revenue sources. So they will kind of like a less depend on Indian education system probably. Okay, yeah, somewhat something, but that's a big problem that I have to be think about. Oh yeah, this is kind of like a bigger thing. Now regarding about the question, I forgot the question. The question is actually about that ki basically is this thing, what is actually the Indian education system are kind of like a doing for kind of like a something the things that matter, like a building a kind of like a school with the basic amenities like a toilet, internet, kind of like a somebody the disabled ramp or computers, electricity. Okay, like India is kind of like still struggling with all those things. Now problem is that na, like let me tell you one thing na, because of India has a kind of like a 1.4 million schools. So because of India has a 1.4 million schools na, it's kind of like something very difficult to kind of like provide all those resources, and that's a big problem. Why? Because of that, the number. Let me tell you one thing. When you have bigger cluster of school, let's just say a school which has a kind of like a cluster of 20,000 students are actually in that school, and then if that actually happened na, then probably the sources are bigger, but the kind of like a thing is that na ki education system are kind of like a provide everything to kind of like a simply cater those 20,000 student, because the number is kind of like a very much higher. Okay, yeah. But if the kind of like a say a school which has a capacity of 300 student, then probably government will gonna think that ki, dude, for the 300 student I'm spending almost like a electricity bill, the roof and things and that for this 300 school. Like basically this in na ki how much money should I supposed to spend on kind of like a things. Like let me tell you one thing. Let's just say a 20,000 capacity of school, I'm spending less amount of money over there. But if the kind of like a school has a 300 capacity of student, I will spending more for money for the operational cost, operational and kind of like a manufacturing things and that and that. So this is what kind of like a difference. So that's why it kind of like a problem you actually create, because 1.4 million kind of like a schools are actually exist. So this is kind of like a problem it becomes. Gurukul is kind of like a fixing that. Okay, like basically 20,000 students, but still that's a like 20,000 kind of like a somebody's Gurukul are actually exist. Then probably they would kind of like somebody create its own revenue sources, as well as kind of like a somebody is this thing that ki education kind of like a somebody education system will kind of like a somebody like a spend very less amount of money because 20,000 student capacity are there. So this is kind of like a things probably like do you understand? So probably that, I don't know, but this is kind of like I have to figure it out regarding about Gurukul and things like that. All right, right now I have to be end here. This is it, and thank you.